What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Technically, the first generation Tiggo, as well as its updated variants FL and Tiggo 3, machines are as simple as possible. Many elements are either officially licensed, or simply copied from other cars. The exterior initially repeated the Toyota RAV4 of the second generation, and the body was largely similar to the Rafiki of the first and second generations in design in the free interpretation of the Chinese. Of course, it is completely steel, without the use of aluminum, plastic, and other newfangled materials like magnesium alloys. Engines are located transversely in front. All-wheel drive is realized by an angular gearbox and a clutch on the rear axle. The interior design also partially copies the Japanese solution, although not as literally as in Lafan X60. The motors on the first series of Tiggo are also clones, but copied not from Toyota, but from Mitsubishi. Specifically, from the Sirius family, which was mastered in production in China. The second series of Tiggo received its own motors of Acteco family, developed by Austrian AVL for modern electronics from Bosch. There are 3 automatic transmissions. Hydromechanical automatic DP0, familiar from Renault and PSA, was used with 2-liter engines. Mitsubishi F4A42 gearbox was used with 2 4 engines. Later there was a Variator QR019 CHAS-CHB of own development, also with the involvement of European engineering companies. 5-stage ICP QR523 MHC, QR523 MHB, and QR523T are variants of old Mitsubishi boxes. They are produced under license for decades, and not only for Tiggo. Suspensions are McPherson at the front and multi-lever at the rear, almost entirely copied from the second generation RAV4. Timeline November 2004. The model is presented at the Guangzhou Motor Show. Mid-2005. Serial production of the model is started. Motors 2.0 and 2.4 series Sirius. MKP 5-speed and AKP 4-speed. April 24, 2006. Assembly of the model was started at Toyota plant in Kaliningrad. Only versions with MKP. SKD assembly. November 2008. Production of the model at TAGZ plant has been started. Only version with 1.8 engine and MKP. The model is assembled on a full cycle. Production of the model at Toyota is stopped. Deliveries of versions with automatic transmission from China are started. September 2010. Model update. New Acteco 1.8 132 horsepower engines in combination with MKP and AKP. New exterior. The interior has been updated. February 2012. Appearance of 1.6 119 horsepower Acteco engine, only with MKP. May 2014. The model is renamed Tiggo 3. Significant change in appearance and assembly technologies. Old licensed motors are no longer installed. A variator is installed in pair with the 1.6 motor. The 1.6 motor itself has increased in power to 126 horsepower. August 2019. China once again updated the model, redesigning the exterior in the spirit of the older models. 2020. Tiggo 3 left the Russian market, having never waited for the latest restyling. In China, production and sales, as of early 2021, continue. Body. Exterior panels paint quality varies greatly depending on the place and year of assembly, but in general remains low, floating between disgusting from the factory to better than jigularly. The situation with metal quality is similar. On cars up to 2014 there is no galvanization at all. The chips start to rust at once. The situation is better on the Tiggo 3, but not much better. The primer lies poorly, the paintwork itself is delicate and thin, on internal elements only 20 to 30 microns, outside on average 60. But there are a lot of blisters up to 100. It is possible to find a perfect car in native coloring only in southern regions and at the age of up to 5 years. Exceptions to the rule are very rare, and these are cars that have been very well cared for and stored in ideal conditions. Chase for such options is hardly worth it, for in conditions of normal operation with street storage, its age will still be short. Do not be deceived by the photo in the ads for sale, The car, even at the age of 10 plus years, retains a decent appearance. The very rotten bucket does not look like. But to buy a car older than 8 to 10 years usually does not make much sense, if you expect not to invest in the body. The whole elements will be few even with good care, and in addition to what you can check with a cursory inspection, there will be a dozen of nooks and crannies where everything is rotted. In a typical 5-plus-year-old car, rust insidiously creeps out on almost all panels, both in restyling, FL, and pre-restyling, and are harmless. Looking bug can actually mean that there is no metal under the paint within a dozen centimeters from the visible point of damage. The situation with the Tiggo 3 is not clear yet, but it seems that a little zinc or deeper phosphatization on the exterior panels does not change the situation dramatically. A good Tiggo is a boiled Tiggo. Normal variants usually have the sills, arches, and doors welded up, and the problem areas cleaned up, painted and pro-antiquated. Remember, welding is good, it's reliable. But fiberglass cloth and epoxy is really bad, but it happens on Tiggo too. It is necessary to evaluate not the originality of the body, but the quality of bodywork and the comprehensiveness of anti-corrosion preparation. Among the owners of Chinese, there are rumors about non-decaying cars of correct assembly, but here opinions differ. Someone considers Chinese assembly as an ideal, someone, Kaliningrad assembly, but almost all agree that Tagaz assembly, especially in 2008 to 2009, is the worst option in terms of quality. In fact, any aged Tiggo, which did not have a full anti-corrosion treatment immediately after leaving the showroom, rots. And mainly the seams and internal surfaces rot, which the Chinese technologists decided not to spend on treatment. In 2011 I bought a new Vortex Tiggo, analog of the first generation Chery Tiggo of Tagaz assembly. I owned it for 4 years and drove it 75,000 kilometers. No problems, nothing repaired, no complaints about the motor, only changed oil. By the 4th year of ownership, the suspension started to rattle and the whole car was covered with rust, says Oleg Trebetskoy. The owner of Tiggo inspection in any case is recommended meticulous, and do not hope that on the Chinese car you will find excellent body parts for cheap. The average price tag for bodywork is higher than for the Japanese, because no sensible contract, quarters and new scats. As, say, for the old Mark II, about which we wrote recently, the quality of Chinese body parts on a Chinese car is noticeably lower than that of Taiwanese competitors. And the quality of Chinese body parts for Chinese cars is noticeably lower than that of their Taiwanese competitors. In any case, you will have to tighten and adjust them more often, and the catalogs do not shine with accuracy because of the abundance of different versions of body parts for different years. Having evaluated the situation in a complex, let's move to the problem places. Sill and sill reinforcement rot from inside practically in all cars, even in very good in all respects cars. The seam between the sill and the rear arch is also given up in the first place. Often dots on the arch of the rear and front wings are rotten from the inside through. The hood also rots from the inside around the radiator grille. Water accumulates in the beak recesses and is looking for a way out. Doors simply rot with time underneath and around the handles, where the corrosion center is formed immediately, just spreads slowly. Yes, and the door frame, especially the rear one, is at risk. All the bloating on the frame coating is likely to cover the through holes. The roof edge above the windshield is another traditional place where problems appear. Even on brand new cars the paint starts bubbling there. The rear door suffers not only around the handle, but also on the glass seals and at the bottom. Yes, and under the plastic cover plate you can often see rust drips from the fixing holes. In doorways under the lower decorative cover it usually feels at ease. The Chinese for some reason glued to the plastic covers foam, which collects water. And next to this foam, fixing holes in the body, the edges of which are always scratched by clips of fasteners. And the upper part of the door openings can be examined carefully. The ventilation of the roof cavity is not very well thought out. Here, and there is always a lot of condensate. If the seat belts are wet, it is worth to remove the seal and check the openings around the perimeter. Look at the seams of the roof. And the condition of the reinforcements of the center and front struts. And the floors at the same time. Detail original price of non-original 2 body front headlight halogen 4330 components 6006 windshield. 9430 kmk 4929 front fender 11454 not on sale front bumper 4123 component 10791 no name 2320 hood 41589 Jordan 14177 underneath. Strange as it may seem, Even 10-year-old cars are in decent condition if the interior is dry. It does not hurt to check this, because even slightly damp carpets lead to rust growth along the paper sheets of the underbody insulation. It will be difficult to dry everything completely in such a case. The main age problems visible from below are rotten sills and a lot of corrosion in the arches. The sill rots from the inside, and if rust appears on the outside, it is useless to paint it, only to cut it off and replace it with a new one. Thankfully, there is inexpensive galvanizing on sale for less than $5,000 per piece. Sill reinforcements are also usually replaced. They are small in height and strongly rot from the bottom, but the shape is simple, and they are often molded in place. The rear part of the sill suffers most of all, but local repair is usually doomed to failure due to poor quality of antica and primer from the factory. So, if the rust has come out, you will have to change everything. In the arches, corrosion is also necessarily present, but the through perforation will be only near the technological holes and along the seams. The place where the fuel line is routed in the rear right arch is particularly badly affected. The metal pipes are covered with a plastic cover, and there is a lot of dirt behind them. In the front arches, a mud pocket is formed not only in the rear part of the arch, behind the locker, but also at the top, around the strut support. It usually rots the thinner metal at the front of the strut support, near the weld points of the reinforcing plate. By the way, it's better to put a cover on the support and fill it with antica, otherwise water accumulates in it. But rust at the same time and the edges of all the holes, the wiring of brake pipes and ABS wires, the surfaces of the reinforcing spar in the arch. Surface rust on the bottom of the body is usually not noticeable even in the rear part. Good mastic on the bottom especially not spared. It will hide if not protect, then hide. Usually, if there are problems, the mastic peels off around the drain plugs, and it is visible. Except that the area in front of the rear suspension is covered little and under the trunk, and a dry layer of thin rust is slowly grinding the underbody, as is the case with many other cars. Of course, the seams rot a little bit, especially in the rear part of the body, under the trunk, where the muffler periodically heats. The body, and the sealant deteriorates faster, causing rotting of the rear panel from the floor panel and the floor panel from the spars. The quality of the sealant at the body is not very good at all. Pay attention to how it is applied in the engine compartment. This will tell you a lot about the peculiarities of a particular instance. On mono-drive cars, the exhaust is often redesigned to hang a gas tank under the trunk, and the muffler is moved to the center tunnel. By the way, the fuel tank mounting straps should be checked. They can break off on cars manufactured in 2012. Of course, it is necessary to inspect the seams in the engine compartment, as these are very stressed elements, and corrosion often comes out along the seams. It is necessary to check not only the cups, but also the frame of the windshield from below, the overmotor niche, the joints of the wing and the reinforcing spar, all elements of the front panel and the back part of the hood. Special attention, seams of a cup and an engine shield. There is a weak welding, it can be torn off at road accident or overload. Of a suspension, often welding points are strongly sharpened by corrosion and wait only for additional load to tear off. It is most convenient to look from the cabin with an endoscope. Open the gas tank hatch. It is metal here, and the rust on the hinges will gradually penetrate it through about 10 years of operation. In the meantime, it will simply prevent the spring from opening it, so a stationary clip with a spring snapped from the inside is a good solution. Its spring will help the hatch not to get stuck when opening. It will not hurt to inspect all the seams of the rear door opening and longitudinal seams of the roof. There may be surprises with cracks in the sealant and in the metal itself. The body construction is quite old-fashioned, soft, and weak. In general, if the Tiggo is old, there may be plenty of problems. Especially many of them will be in cars that have been frequently traveling off-road. But it is not newer, and the car is not much adapted to off-road operation. And the car resembles Lada only by the fact that it is good only new. Body equipment, I think. It will not be a surprise if I say that on Chinese cars bumpers are Chinese. From inexpensive plastic, mold with huge tolerances and quite fragile. But the trouble is more in the way it's all assembled and fixed to the body. A mishmash of clips and metal, screws, and skids was hardly carefully calculated in CAD programs. Everything sags, backlashes, or stands up tight. With age, plastic deformation becomes visually noticeable and gaps become horrendous. Especially it concerns the cars before the first restyling. Later they obviously corrected something in technologies. It is true that these cars are newer. Perhaps they just still have everything ahead of them. The same trouble with headlights, handles, mirrors and overlays. All this is made with very low requirements to the quality of manufacture, and if it was changed, it fits very roughly. Optics after restyling with lenses, and they are clearly lower quality than you can buy now, burn out literally in 3 years too. The state of loss of luminosity. And headlight covers are lost regularly. There are also DCDs, however, in them LEDs burn out, and they are too bright. During repairs, they usually change the lens, and the power supply of LEDs is redesigned, reducing the current. Fog lights are better not to turn on unnecessarily. The glass is fragile and afraid of water. And it gets inside easily. Side windows are scratched from sand on seals, and often they are skewed, or even they can fall into the door because of weak plastic. Brackets of glass fastening to the mechanism of the glass elevator, which are prone to break at any overload. As a result, the appearance is badly spoiled not only because of the aging paintwork, but also because of the additional equipment. Otherwise, strangely enough, everything is not done so badly. Long enough serve locks, windshield wiper mechanism, rails, and not only. Especially if you treat the car carefully. The interior is one of the strong points of the car. In any case, this is the opinion of Tiggovards, and partly it is objectively so, mainly due to solidly stretched Toyota ergonomics. True, plastic is cheap, unpleasant to the touch and hard, buttons are pressed unpleasantly, and in general budgetary character of the car is well felt. The standard noise insulation leaves much to be desired not only because it does not provide silence in the cabin, but also because it is not moisture resistant and contributes to corrosion of the body floor. Shumka is often changed, which is usually in favor in all senses, except that the cabin for the second time assembled even worse than the Chinese at the factory. Another disadvantage is the quality of the climate system. The radiator of the heater with thin tubes gets clogged, and in winter the car stops warming the interior. The work of flaps is also not ideal. All intermediate modes between cold and hot cause unpredictable temperature fluctuations at changes of engine load and speed of the car. And in the fall it is a bit difficult without air conditioner. Windows sweat at the first opportunity. Everything is sad with the life of the interior. By the mileage of 100,000 the car looks like old jiggly. Shabby steering wheel and greasy seat coverings, frayed plastic. Of door cards, frayed buttons. The loft of buttons, steering column, climate handles is noticeably increasing and frankly interferes with normal driving. The situation, of course, can be corrected by dry cleaning and replacement of worn elements, as there is a choice. It's a pity that, according to observations, few Tiggo drivers do it. Electrics, it is enough to see the wiring of Tiggo interior once in opened form, and it will be clear that the life of the owner of such car will never be boring. The wiring looks as if it was taken at the factory, used from another car, and tried to restore it. Thin brittle wires are poorly twisted into cores. For some reason ordinary plastic tape is actively used for strengthening. Connectors are all unsealed, made of rough plastic with very doubtful fixation. The panel wiring harness is attached to the panel itself when the car is assembled, which adds unnecessary vibrations to it. Corrugations in the engine compartment and in the doors are leaky, collect dust and dirt inside, and as a result, the life of the wiring is reduced, the insulation is wiped. Contact groups of the block of paddle switches, ignition lock, power window block after 3 years of operation can ask for caressing and lubrication. Brake and clutch limit switches are frankly weak. Sensors are a separate problem. Antifreeze temperature sensors, throttle position sensors, oil pressure sensors, and lambda sensors are surprisingly short-lived. And the electronic throttle on the new motors is also short-lived, although it looks like a decent Bosch. Nevertheless, inside, dirt and failures already by 100 to 150,000 kilometers of mileage. Yes, and do not forget about spark plug wires. It is a consumable on any motor, while the ignition modules themselves are quite strong. Switching blocks, relays, and gasoline pump are also not particularly high quality. In general, problems with electronics are common. Then turn signals fail, then headlights, then illumination, then the fuel level suddenly depends on the speed, then the ABS suddenly starts to work on an even place, then the engine does not start. It is interesting that the generator resource is quite decent. It's 150,000 and more it goes, and charge does not hold more often. Because of wiring failures. Not too happy picture is complicated by the quality of Chinese schemes of electrical system. The quality of translation, binding to the sets and colors are very approximate. Versions of blocks and their stuffing can be very different from the expected ones. In general, at best it can be called surprises, at worst, a minefield. Intermediate result: given the obvious problems with the quality of body metal and paint, the newer the Tiggo is, the better. It is advisable to take a Tiggo 3 after 2014, when there is at least an anti-corrosion layer on the outside, albeit thinner than you would like. Older cars are likely to need to be welded pretty quickly. The interior is unassuming, even unpleasant in places, but unlikely to cause problems. Electrics are scrappy, though from cheap components, so it will not ruin you when servicing. To give you a complete impression, in Part 2 we'll look at the chassis, transmission, and engine problems. In conclusion, the Chery Tiggo T11 presents a mixed bag for potential buyers. While its mileage may seem appealing, the reality of inevitable corrosion and unpredictable electrical issues cannot be overlooked. It's essential to weigh these factors carefully before making a decision. As always, thorough research and consideration of long-term ownership costs are crucial. Thank you for watching, and we hope this video has provided valuable insights into the Chery Tiggo T11.